Muri yeZimbabwe tichikugamuchirai zvakarepo pano paZim News Update. Pano petinoda kupai manews update anonga ari kuitika muno munyika yeZimbabwe. So kana uri mutsva, please don't forget to subscribe, like nekushare. Muri yeZimbabwe tine mashoko ari kubva kuna comrade Majaire Jairos muri yeZimbabwe, uye tina comrade vari kutaura nenhauwa yeCool kuti ichange yakamira sei pano paZim News Update tichakuisirai pano. Uye tine nyaya yaTemba Muliswa. Temba Muliswa tiri kunyatsokuratidzai kuti munhu is after money. Haminditi kuti kunotonomuvhotera pachiko kuti ainge ari independent candidate. It's after money. Tiri kuti munzwe mashoko ari kutaura. Hakuna munhu akaita saGeneral Chiwenga achitaura is the general, real general. Now muchanzwa mashoko futi ari kutaura muri yeZimbabwe. Now akubuditsa mashoko ekuti ndopandaona kuti apererwa cheche. Akubuditsa mashoko ekuti kwanzi VP Chiwenga wakabhadharirwa mabills nakuda Tagwirei kuti vange vachienda kunorapwa kuChina. Muri yeZimbabwe munhu wacho ari kutaurwa vice president wenyika ari kunzi saka kuti kwanza ari kushayiwa marere iye hazvitauri chinhu kutaura nga kagrade 1 akutotonga kagrade 1 ndatoshayiwa nere muromo ipapo kuti akutotonga akutopenga cheche kuTemba Muliswa. So tiri kuona kuti vari kunetsana futi na George Charamba muri yeZimbabwe. Hazvina kumira zvakanaka. George Charamba akamunzwa kuti wakucrossa nepamusaka pekuti anga ataura mashoko anga ataura kuti no mataurira kuti vice president wazonyanya wakucrossa red line, ndipo wakasimudzana naGeorge Charamba akutora kuti George Charamba iwewe haufariri waMnangagwa chichi utokundwa kutoita spokesperson naJonathan Moyo. Jonathan Moyo akatotiza nenhauwa yecorruption adori kukinya zvake uko ndoko kwakatolezera ari chichi. Saka hatingangatiudzi nhauwa dzemunhu ari kuita corruption tiza umhosva dzake muno munyika yeZimbabwe. So ndo mamirira zvakaita mhuri yeZimbabwe. Tiri kuona kuti vakupinzana bhizi chaizvo na George Charamba. George Charamba anotozikanwa kuti haawirirana napresident Emmerson Mnangagwa, ndosaka muri kuona akaiswa padhuze napresident Emmerson Mnangagwa. Ndiye anonzi spokesperson muofisi, mutauriri wapresident Emmerson Mnangagwa. Ndosaka muchiona kwese kwavanoenda kwese because anofanira kumuisa, because anoziva kuti akamusiya ari ega muofisi mawana anogona kutangidza muri yeZimbabwe. When Mnangagwa fired Jamwanda 2, then reappointed him as a deputy. Ambomufaya handimazvona anyatsoona kuti zvinhu hazvinomira zvakanaka, ubva murepoinda futi kumuita as a deputy chief secretary at large muri yeZimbabwe in a OPC. I didn't understand why he did travels international with Charamba, because he knows it is a risky business to leave him behind. Ndofunga murudzwa muri yeZimbabwe, keep your enemy closer. He sees him a treacherous muri yeZimbabwe. So ndo mamirira zvakaita muri yeZimbabwe. Tiri kuti tende kubepa nhau ere Zim ai munzwe Temba Muliswa zvaitaura muri yeZimbabwe. Munyatsoona kuti kamunhu aka after money muri yeZimbabwe, after money. Ezvo zvekari kumoka VP Chiwenga ava ndi Prophet Magaya. Vaminotowanzwa vari kuitawo seiko. Tiri kuona kuti Prophet Magaya speaks during his dry fasting watched by camera person paid by him. Chichiri kuitika zvana Magaya vari kutorwa mari. Togara vasubscribe pano muri yeZimbabwe ndotisazorasikiwe. Iyi mupolisi uyu ari kutopinda mota mushikashika achitotenderedza kuti ibvapo ari kunetsana neuyu regedzei ndione video racho ndori une iri pazasava. Ndofunga muri kuzona zviri kuitika izvo. Izvo vari kunetsana nepolisi ipapo muri yeZimbabwe pamushikashika apo vari kunetsana newanhu. Tine maupdates akati wandei. Ndofunga muri kuona maupdates ese takada kumaisa ese manje hatizomapedzi muri yeZimbabwe. Hatizomapedzi. What Chiwenga did know General can do Muliswa. Ndi Muliswa ari busy muri yeZimbabwe, ari busy. Ndofunga muri kuona ari busy. Ndi Muliswa ari kutaura nenhauwa yekutoti you will never get a general like Chiwenga muri yeZimbabwe. Ndo nyezoona kuti kamunhu aka after money kanyuka mubonde jejeko, kanyuka mubonde. You will never get a general like Chiwenga. Mireti mbonzo zvakari kutaura kuti kari kumboti kudini. Rakumbonzo zvakari kutaura pano tinzwa kuti kari kuti kudini.
You will never get a general like Chiwenga. I mean, generals might come, but what he did in Restore Legacy, no other general will do that in this country. That I can tell you. Because it needs you to be of a certain caliber. That you must give it to him at the end of the day. But that's what I'm saying. For people to say there will be a coup, and it will never happen again, because there can only be one Chiwenga. not two, not three. There can only be one shiri. So they were a different breed of command. You will never get a general like.
After money muri yeZimbabwe, you will never get a general like Chiwenga. I mean, general might come, but what he did in Restore Lagos, no a general do that in this country. That's what I can tell you. That you must give it to him at the end of the day. But that was, I am saying, for people to say nomashoko ari kutaura never happen again. Hanza zvakaitika futi kuti tingawana munhu akaita saChiwenga zvakaitika futi, because I can only be one Chiwenga, not to two, not to three. They are only parents shiri, ndi parents shiri aitawo apa. So ndo mamirira zvakaita mhuri yeZimbabwe. Temba Muliswa is after money, ndo mamirira zvakaita. Ndofunga muri kuona hamene kuti after watching Ruth Odinga munhu anombotaura ndichinyatsozvo ndonde kukinya unyaya pana mudhara yakafa anenge mukadzi wacho. I think mudhara wekukinya akafa uyaya anenge mukadzi wacho. Ndo mamirira zvakaita mhuri yeZimbabwe. Toti kusiyei muchinzwa general wachitaura pano. Ndimuliswa uyo ari kutaura. Muliswa anetsa mhuri yeZimbabwe. Don't miss exclusive interview with the outspoken politician Temba Muliswa on the Hotspot program hosted by Violet Gonda. Mhuri yeZimbabwe iri benzi chacho, timudza kuti ari kuti chikwa.
Time the vice president, I still think for the purposes of Kuda and others, they must be able to even go to ZAC and police and say the vice president is an informer. He talked this about us. We are prepared to be investigated. And I think it's something that I think will make our country better. At the same time, the vice president too must be able to answer to the allegations of him benefiting from them and from corrupt deals and from being the godfather of the Chinese companies in Zimbabwe. He must also, because once an allegation comes through, the onus is on you. And yes, Violet, I agree with you, and I don't think it's a problem. He took it to the wrong platform. Has he taken it to the police? Has he taken it to the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission? Has he taken it to the Auditor General's office? Has he taken it to the Prosecutor General's office to see if this is a
mhuri yeZimbabwe rira kuti munzwe musati muchinzwa comrade tinawo pano wanotaura zvinamisoro uyu akutopenga njere pandataura nayo yekutoti VP Chiwenga akabhadharwa mabhiuzi nakudata gwendo pandanotora pfungwa dzake dzato mentally disturbed akutorwara njere cheche kutopenga cheche kutopenga hazvimeki sense dai uri kwanza ato VP Chiwenga kanoti wakazo president vice president anoshayiwe vice president hapana kana chaanoshayiwa tikatuti ndo mamirira zvakaita mhuri yeZimbabwe. Rekezei tidzwe this comrade. Don't forget to subscribe.
Kuti whatever it is that needs to be done, it needs to appear as if it is coming from the people. And how do you make it come from the people? It must not act as if it is coming from a political party or a group of people, but it must come via the parliamentary process and make it a people initiative. Whatever it is, that is being spoken about in this document. Because it does not need to be seen as something that is coming from a particular group, but it must be seen as coming from a particular person. I mean, from the parliamentary process. Then comes Shabangu. I want to read this. Given that in public policy or public affairs, the process of any definition of a problem or solution is everything, it is important and is in fact necessary that the identification of the barrier of the scourge of disputed elections and its sub-barriers, as well as the solution to breaking the 5 barriers outlined in the foregoing should be situated or done in and by Parliament, so as to give both the impression and the reality that it is the people. That it is the people through their Parliament who have identified and defined the problem and who have proposed its comprehensive, detailed, and lasting solution. In other words, the problem definition and its proposed solution should not come from an individual or a political party or from any group for that matter, but it should come from the People's National Assembly and the Senate, the Parliament of it, and defined the problem, and we have accordingly proposed to proposed its requested solution. Would need to do is to pose the question in order to expose the full extent and the full implications of the problem in the form of a special BB motion at a special joint sitting of the National Assembly and the Senate as a way of facilitating the solution to the identified problem through Parliament, which is the constitutional forum of and for the people. Specifically, that the motion gets proposed during the setting, during the, and then it proposes the setting up of a select committee of both houses of Parliament. So, if you read, this, ladies and gentlemen, whatever it is that is being planned or was being planned, which was planned from I don't know when, but this was something that was in the making. In the opposition ranks to be involved in this. And that party, a willing one, became Shengezo Shabangu, who was given the position of the leader of the opposition in parliament. And it is through him that this thing must be started. He poses a question in parliament, and it got seconded by the ZANU PF chief whip, who is Togarepi, and they put everything in motion, culminating in the amendment number 3, which speaks of amending sections of the constitution ya Zimbabwe inoenderana nema-elections. We do away with those, section 91, I think, or 92, and all the other relevant sections that matter. So everything has to be done in parliament. Vana Zimbabwe, Mimi, you don't need a referendum. Do you know why you don't need a referendum? You don't need to be participating in a referendum. Do you know why you don't need to be participating in a referendum? It's because your elected representatives are doing what you elected them to do in parliament. So if Sengezo Shabangu can move the motion in a joint sitting, it means whoever or whatever constituents or whatever area that is representing It is the people of that area that have moved the motion. Togarepi seconding, it is people from his constituents who have seconded the motion. Going through the debates and everything, it is the people through these representatives who are participating in whatever discussions that are going on in parliament. That takes away the need to have a referendum. Hapana chicheni chiri kuproposwa in this document other than self-serving purposes. Ndo chete zviripo. If the reports are true that Johnson was paid more than $4 million US, and his party to come up, with this document, and he has, gotten his farm back, it only tells you about the selfishness of an individual who's saying, you know what, I've lived in exile for 8 years. I want to come back home. But how can I go back home? Okay, let me go back into bed with that individual that I used to write, tweets and posts about, saying let's kwekwe him. That individual that we used to say is unelectable, or this individual that we say is not good for the country. Let me just suck up to him. Let me give him, this, and reassure him that if you follow this to the T, you're going to continue in your possession. I mean, in your position, and you can dictate how you want this country to be run in the future. So this document, ladies and gentlemen, it's 24 pages, but you can read this and you can understand. But what I just thought about, talking, I just thought, let us discuss, this thing. I'm not saying that, because some of the things that are already, or that are in there, some of these things are some of the things that we raised or we're talking about even before this document came into existence. We're speaking about how they are trying to make 2030 happen. Because when they started talking about 2030, you'd think that it was just a vision, like the SDG goals of 2030 vision of the United Nations, to say that by 2030, these are the 17 developmental goals that we should have at least addressed by the year 2030. In this 2030 thing, when it was being spoken about, you would think that it was Zimbabwe becoming a middle and an upper middle class, whatever, by 2030. But that is not to say that Mnangagwa can do whatever it is that he wants with the Zimbabwe constitution, because he wants to be there when the time comes. He wants to be there to say, could I told you, could we are going to get to 2030, and 2030 is going to be in upper middle class, whatever income, mambo jumbo that they are telling us. And they are prepared to do away with